divided by things such as the meaning of the earliest, 1844 manuscripts of Karl Marx, to who did what to whom at whose bar mitzvah. So the full range of things that you would expect family members. But he warned them. And so on a night in August, we got into a rubber raft and paddled across the Danube to Czechoslovakia. I was 6 months old, my sister was 11 years old, and my mother and my father.
Shame on corporate spies! Shame on corporate spies! Friedman is a crook! Friedman is a crook! Shame on corporate spies! Shame on corporate spies! Friedman is a crook! Justice for Bhopal! 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 Friedman is a crook!
At least it's on the other.
I saw him over there.
Well, let's continue. How do you carry on from that? Okay. I'm going to find the center here again.
Just remember, all publicity is good.
No, I can tell you that's not true.
Can you talk about what he means by Bhopal?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he's referencing.
According to WikiLeaks, Stratfor spied on demonstrators who were posing. There was a lawsuit against the company that released the chemicals at Bhopal. And according to the claims of WikiLeaks, Stratfor was spying on them. It was also alleged that Stratfor was spying on Occupy Austin and other things, to which the answer is no, we weren't, but that's such a lame answer, I don't know how to give it. Things are asserted, and it's almost impossible to give an answer besides no. But that's what he was saying. And what happened, for those of you who don't know, is that our website was hacked, like Sony's and many others. And in that hacking, the emails were taken. And the emails, some were released, some were changed, so it was a mess. And it wasn't fun. And one of the things that wasn't fun was that. But I guess I'm a good company, the NSA, the State Department, the U.S. Army, and of course Sony, so to hell with it. Yes, they did. But they broke down all of the walls, and in the course of slaughtering them, they also created humanity. For the first time, human beings recognized their commonality.
Oh, if only by contrast against people who were inhuman.
Will you shut up?
Would you please go write your own book? Thank you.
Are you going to be there all day?
We didn't come to hear you.
No, we didn't come to hear you.
No, we came to hear him.
Wait just a minute. I'm from Missouri, and I'm visiting here, and I'm really not used to this. Now, can somebody give me a little consideration? Will you please?
Sorry. I guess my hometown bookstore isn't a place to be.
Oh,
I'm sorry. The paradox
John
is...
Bookstore is built on stolen indigenous land.
Bye.
no. This just makes me so nervous.
Land belongs to
I wonder
Mexico,
where he lives.
people.
No, I have been clearly told, never engage a heckler. Never engage a heckler. God, I want to engage a heckler. Okay, we'll start again here.
You regret helping the FBI to entrap an anonymous hacker?
I did not trap an anonymous hacker.
This video is about an action that was done by PAPS. It was actually the first action that we ever did. And what I'm going to read to you first before I show you the video, which is so cool. And by the way, I was really lucky to find this video. it has been missing from YouTube and everywhere else for a couple years now. So I actually had to find it in Wayback Machine and figure out how to get a copy of it and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of struggle involved here. So, but it was worth it because this is like probably still to date one of my favorite actions for sure. So this was the first action we did as PAPS. And what I'm about to read you is from Mint Press News, an article written by Kit O'Connell entitled Protesting George Friedman, CEO of Stratfor in Austin and San Francisco. So in this article, just to let you know, I am the gorilla, and the author of the article is the guy that's holding the sign that says Justice for Bhopal. So, and he's a pretty cool guy. He's a local Austin, Texas activist. He's involved in a lot of different things. So, this is what the article says. Austin, Texas. On January 22nd, journalist and political prisoner Barrett Brown was convicted in a Texas court of controversial charges. In addition to a 63-month sentence, Brown is expected to pay $890,000 in restitution to the private spy agency Strategic Forecasting, aka Stratfor. This monumental fine, which turns a theoretically free citizen into an indentured servant of a corporation, is meant to hold Brown responsible for a hack by the anonymous group LulzSec, even though the government admitted it didn't have any concrete evidence to show he'd taken any material part in the hack. Jeremy Hammond, a member of LulzSec, pled guilty in May of 2013 and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The hack, carried out under the instruction of the FBI's agent saboteur and snitch Sabu, revealed millions of emails that showed the complex interrelationship between the private intelligence firm, multinational corporations, and the surveillance state. The emails also revealed how Stratfor had infiltrated activist groups from Texas to India. On February 2, 2015, George Friedman, Stratfor's CEO, was scheduled to sign his book, Flashpoints, The Emerging Crisis in Europe, at Book People, an independent bookstore in Austin, Texas. It would be Hammond's 1,065th day in prison. Brown had been incarcerated for 874. George Friedman, you should have expected us. From Bhopal to Austin. 30 years ago, the Union Carbide plant in Bhopal, India, sprayed toxic gases into the air, killing over 4,000 residents and devastating the lives of hundreds of thousands more for decades to come. The victims, their families, and descendants are still struggling for justice. There continue to be higher than normal rates of birth defects in the region. Union Carbide refused to take responsibility and instead became part of the multinational giant Dow Chemical. Instead of paying reparations to the victims of the disaster or to clean up the environmental damage, Dow paid Stratfor to spy on the non-violent activists that were bringing attention to the tragedy. But there was something that made ruining Friedman's night even more personal for me. The emails also revealed that in 2011, Strategic Forecasting had collaborated with the Intelligence Department of the Texas State Troopers to infiltrate Occupy Austin. I'd been a member, and Hammond had tipped us off even before he shared the millions of emails with WikiLeaks. While I'd be carrying a banner for Bhopal that night, I was doing it for Hammond. I heard about the book signing from Azura Crispino of Prison Abolition and Prisoner Solidarity, aka PAPS, the Anonymous Solidarity Network, aka Freeanons. She'd been tipped off to the event and begun organizing a small group of local activists to respond. Because we wanted to maintain the element of surprise, we kept our planning off social networks. It took only a handful of people to force Friedman to turn his book signing into a lecture on the evils of his corporation. One activist drove in from out of town with a gorilla suit and banner-making supplies. My backyard was the scene of the crime. There's no use hiding it because there's glitter all over still. I agreed to sneak the banner into the store and be the first major distraction. A handful of others secretly joined the audience while our gorilla stood outside to loudly draw attention and rustle some jimmies with another banner. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking these organizations as faceless and above the law, Azura told me later. Stratfor as a corporation is not a person, but the corporation is made up of people, including its founder, George Friedman. These individuals must be held accountable for their actions. Since the state reflects the interests of the 0.1% and not of the people, it will never hold the private intelligence complex accountable for its spying and infiltration of nonviolent protesters. It is up to the people to hold up the mirror of truth to them. Friedman's reading took place on the second of 3 floors inside Book People, right at the top of a flight of stairs above the store's science fiction comic book shelves where I'd spent a happy evening browsing. As I approached the top of the stairs, I pulled the banner from underneath my shirt and unfurled it. I stepped off the landing, standing to Friedman's right and just behind him as he spoke at a podium. Since the staff didn't intervene with me immediately, I stood there silently as the audience and other customers reacted. Several took photos. One man tried to block his view of my banner by holding Friedman's book in front of my face. Later he would repeatedly and petulantly yell, "Write your own book!" during each successive disruption. But the night was about making our voice be heard over the din of Stratfor's money and power. I began to shout, "Justice for Bhopal! Friedman is a crook! Shame on corporate spies!" The event was completely disrupted for some time. Employees chased me first across the second floor and then back down the stairs. Rather than letting them herd me out immediately, I ran into the bookstore cafe. It was very busy. "Beware, there's a corporate crook in the building," I shouted to the surprised caffeinators before resuming my series of chants. Eventually, a very angry man with a long beard and a black cowboy hat succeeded in chasing me out the door. I was gone from the property and in hiding before the cops arrived. The banner went in the trash, and I scrubbed glitter from my hands in a bathroom sink. The police arrived just in time for the next activist to be ejected from the store. I wish I could have been there to watch the interactions between 6 cops, an angry cowboy, the gorilla, and the communist who'd just been kicked out for reminding George Friedman that his hometown bookstore was built on stolen indigenous land. "What's a lulz?" a cop asked the gorilla. In the video above, you can see the real success of our tactic. Though Friedman drew some laughs from his audience, he seems visibly shaken and takes several moments to recollect himself. And I'd also like to add to this, there are a couple moments where you can see him like look up where he looks real mad, like looking evil as fuck, like major stank / evil eye going on. Okay, back to the thing. And instead of immediately returning to his prepared speech, he finds himself recounting the story of the hack. He explains the accusations of activist infiltration and the embarrassment of having millions of private emails and credit card numbers belonging to a security company revealed to the whole world via WikiLeaks and Anonymous. Seemingly shaken, Friedman admits he has only excuses. "It was a mess and it wasn't fun. And one of the things that wasn't fun was that interruption," Friedman concludes. "But I guess I'm in good company. The NSA, the State Department, the U.S. Army, and Sony, so to hell with them." But the lulls weren't over. During the question and answer period, Azura asked George Friedman, "Do you regret helping the FBI to entrap that anonymous hacker?" Flustered again, he denied collaborating with the FBI. Court records clearly show that Stratfor was asked by the FBI to allow the hack to happen, and they complied, she told me later. They could have instead chosen to shore up their security and not cooperate. It is paramount street activists ensure corporate choices come with the price of public ridicule and disruption. So the next time a truth-seeking hacker is set up by a government agency, executives know they will be personally held accountable for that cooperation. Finally, as Friedman signed books, a final audience plant brought up a copy of Flashpoints and read out a dedication. "Happy 30th birthday, Jeremy Hammond." Friedman got as far as Jeremy's name before stopping. On February 6, 2015, George Friedman was scheduled to speak at Book Passage in San Francisco. Sue Crabtree of Free-Anons began contacting local activists immediately after the Austin protest. I must say, San Francisco and its activist community never ceases to amaze me. I believe it was Monday or Tuesday when I found out about the signing via Sue. By Wednesday night, we had organized to act on several levels. This time, the organization took place openly on social media, including Facebook. The San Francisco Occupy Action Council sent out a mass email. Organizers held a sign-making party. In addition to disruptive members of the audience, there would be a picket outside the bookstore. If people remain unaware of the negative impacts that Stratfor has had upon the environment and human lives, there is very little chance that there will be any positive change on those levels. We need to make sure that people in charge of, or that perform acts that cause such a negative impact upon humanity, know that they are being watched, and to at least some level are being held accountable. Sue Crabtree elaborated. It's our duty to remind people like George that we fully intend to be there each time he signs a book and to ask him how much money it takes to buy someone like him. The public has a right to know exactly what companies like Stratfor are up to. This time, George expected us and canceled his book signing.